Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We still got a few more folks hopping on to the webinar, so we'll get started in just a couple minutes. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our webinar on RECon 2019. Surprise, surprise, it's already coming back around. We get to talk about all the retail events that's going on across the country, and we thank you for joining us for talking about how to navigate the big show coming up in Vegas. Just before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping notes. There is a question box available on your control panel. Please feel free, if anything pops up, to shoot us over a question. We'll try to get to as many as we can throughout the webinar, as well as a few Q&As at the end. Then I also want to let everyone know that this is being recorded, and we will be sending out a recording of the webinar along with the slide deck following up probably tomorrow morning. To go ahead and make sure you have all these notes on hand. So if anything does get missed, no need, you'll get a second crack at it to go back and revisit anything that we discussed here. We'll try to keep this to about 30 minutes, talk about the high points and our experience of going through RECon in Vegas, and hopefully shed a little bit of light to help you better prepare and have the most productive show that you can have coming up in just a few weeks. This morning, I'm joined by two of my colleagues. My name is Charles Parker. I'm a project director here at the Retail Coach. And I'm joined by Carolyn Hernsberger, our retail recruitment specialist, and Kyle Kofer, one of our project managers here. Good afternoon, guys. How's it going?
Going good, Charles.
Hey, Charles. It's going great. I'm just looking forward to and gearing up for another great RECon.
Yes. I mean, this is obviously the biggest event of the year for us, and it's something that I know in our office we start looking forward to really once it ends every year, but really, in the spring and the months leading up to. I know in the last several weeks we've already done a lot of preparation on our team and our clients. It's really the culmination of 12 months of work every year in Vegas. It's really just a quick introduction for most of you who haven't been to RECon or know much about it. It's simply put the world's largest global gathering of real estate professionals. This is the big event. This is where everyone comes to talk about real estate deals, talk about what brands are expanding, and how to put their community, their sites, their development projects at the top of the list. As everyone knows, economic development is a process and a planning process. And whenever you can get this many decision makers under one roof, it really is a key event and an important event to be a part of if you're trying to attract new brands or grow companies. Just a quick note, if you're probably already signed up. If you have colleagues looking at joining you in Vegas still on the fence, they do have until April 26th, which is just a couple of days away, to get that advanced pricing before they have to do on-site or late signups. Another important thing to note that public sector organizations can become an ICS member and get that preferred pricing for only $100. I know this has been a big piece for ICSC to make sure that they have that participation from communities, because communities really are such an important piece of getting real estate deals to come together. And as you can see from that picture here in the bottom right, this is the place to be. It's quite a circus to get all these decisions made and to really plan out where the real estate is going to be moving in the next 12 months. So just overall, we kind of want to run through this and give as many tips and tricks that we've learned over the years, everything from getting around to how to structure your conversation and how to make sure you're getting face-to-face time with the right folks. So kind of starting at the highest levels is simply getting around Vegas. I know one thing that's important for our team that we like to take advantage of is the monorail there in Vegas. It's very easy, especially if you have a team of folks going, just to hop on, one of the several stations along the strip. So regardless of what hotel you're staying at, there's probably pretty easy access to hop on the monorail, and it drops you right there off on the north side, right at the convention center. 3, 4, 5 day pass, however long you're in town. It's a pretty affordable way to maneuver yourself. There's a timing line on it. You have to wait for an Uber or a Lyft. And if travel is one thing you can kind of take off your plate to stress you throughout the week, it's something that we lean on, and it's something worth possibly looking into. We're going to make sure that's something that might be on the top of your mind, figuring out how do I even get around if you haven't been to Vegas in the past. And then really just want to kind of start with the schedule as well. I know most folks are probably coming in Saturday or Sunday, and Sunday is really when things start kicking off. The main event, the deal-making session isn't open on Sunday. That doesn't mean there's not a lot of things going on. Sunday, that's the keynote when Tony Romo is going to be giving the keynote presentation, kind of kicking things off for the week. And I think there are 2 different times for RECon first timers and new members to go out, have that orientation. I think they're doing a walking tour of the exhibit floors to kind of get a feel for everything. And then Sunday really culminates with the opening reception. And one thing that we're going to kind of be a theme throughout this webinar is talking about getting the most out of it. And, the receptions and social events are one key piece of that. Caroline, I know that we've been to a lot of ICSC events together. Can you kind of talk about the importance of how some of these social events can really drive even getting to know somebody and driving deals?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know about you guys, but if Tony Romo isn't enough to get you to a social event, I don't know what is. But I will say, last year I was at an ICSC event, and I just popped into the main lunch that they had to grab a bite real fast, and sat down at one of the big tables and didn't really know anybody around me, I thought. And then I looked at the girl's name tag next to me, and she worked for a retailer. She was a real estate manager for a retailer, and I email her back and forth all the time. And so it was really neat just to put a face with a name. And she and I hadn't had a meeting scheduled that day. And so, you never know when you go to a lunch or wherever it may be, maybe one of the happy hours, or something, that you're gonna meet some retailers. You may meet some other, community folks that do the same thing that you do, that have some great ideas. Or you may even meet, somebody that's trying to sell you something that actually has a great idea. So I say go to anything and everything that you can to make those connections, because you're paying the money, you're putting the time in, and so you really want to get the most out of this trip.
Yeah, exactly. You never know who or where you're going to brush shoulders with somebody who can either help you out, this week or 2 years down the road. And the only way you're going to find those people and make those introductions, like your experience there, is showing up and being a part of it. So certainly check out the full schedule on the ICSC website and figure out where all the social events are going. Those are certainly things you don't want to miss out. And kind of getting further on into the week, Monday and Tuesday are really the meat and potatoes of ICSC. This is when the leasing mall, the marketplace mall, all the exhibit halls are open all day from 8 to 5. And that's where everyone's going to be hosting meetings, having people in their booths, showing off demonstrations of new projects or products, and really trying to figure out their overall strategy for the next 12 months. There's lunch and presentations on both Monday and Tuesday. And then we'll also be hosting a happy hour in our booth in the North Hall at 2028 U Street. So at the end of the day, after you've made a bunch of contacts, please feel free to drop by our booth, enjoy happy hour, some light hors d'oeuvres, kind of break down and debrief with your team, talk with us and our team about strategy and moving forward. It's a really good place to kind of end your day. So please feel welcome to join us in our booth on Monday and Tuesday for our happy hour. And then the week wraps up with Wednesday deal making. It's kind of a half day. It's much slower than Monday and Tuesday, but there's still some important things that you can get done and can still make a very productive day out of Wednesday, which we'll touch on here in just a few minutes. So kind of starting overall with the Las Vegas Convention Center, if you haven't been there, it really is a massive facility. I know in years past I've walked up to 18 miles within a single day, so make sure you bring your comfortable shoes. And Vegas is very dry heat, so drink water. Two things you don't really think about as you're going out and having all these meetings. But overall, the Vegas Convention Center breaks down into really three main halls: the North Hall, where our booth is going to be set up, the Central Hall, and then the South Hall. I kind of want to break these down, kind of take approach by approach, kind of go over what's in every hall. So Kyle, I know you spent a lot of time in all three halls. So can you break down and kind of what's going to be in the North Hall and Central Hall? What can people expect to find where people are going to be coming up?
Yeah, definitely, Charles. So, like you said, we are located in the North Hall and have been for quite a few years. And lately, we've kind of been seeing a change and an influx of emerging retailers and restaurants, whether that's national or regional concepts. So, North Hall is definitely going to be an area that you want to spend some time and check out. And you'll see back in this back area, the Marketplace Mall. It's kind of focused on city services and their products. So you might want to go check that out as well to kind of get some ideas of new products and really what's going on in that area.
Great. Yeah, and I know that as far as the North Hall, you have like you mentioned, the Marketplace Mall. Those are more the vendors that most municipalities are going to be used to seeing at more of the municipal events. Everything from street lighting, trash cans, and those types of objects. And then also in the back corner, you got the Retail in Focus, which is a really great spot to learn about new concepts and emerging brands, kind of the hot off the press type concepts that you can really get introduced for and kind of get your name on the docket to figure out where they're expanding, what major MSAs to overall really start branching out the next 12 months. And I know we also get down to the Central Hall, which starts getting a little bit closer on the retailer side, right, Kyle?
Correct. So the Central Hall is really broker and developer driven. You'll see the big name players there: CBRE, JLL, the Retail Connections of the world, and really starts to kind of move more into the retailers and restaurants as you really move towards the South Hall, where the majority of those retailers and restaurants are located.
Yeah, and then I do want to point out that on the north side of the Central Hall, you'll notice this is an Uber Lyft pickup. So if you are choosing to do ride sharing, this is where they will push all those drivers to pick you up and kind of put them through a queue, kind of like you see at most airports nowadays. So just another important piece to take note of as you're getting around Vegas. And then lastly, the South Hall, which is pretty retailer heavy. I know, Caroline, you spend a lot of your time down here talking to these folks.
Yeah, Charles, you're right. I do. As the liaison for the retailers, the retail coach, these are my people, and this is where they're located. And one suggestion that I have for navigating all of the halls, but South Hall especially, when you're trying to go find those retailers and the meetings, is the RECon website is a great resource. Go ahead, in the past, I've just bookmarked that RECon website on my phone or on my iPad so I can pull it up, and then you can click on these floor plans at any time, zoom in and zoom out and see, what street you're on, or try to figure out what street you're going to, what avenue, what booth. Just doing a quick look now of South Hall, I see Yum Brands, Dairy Queen, Focus Brands, which has Slotsky's, McAllister's, and those names. I see McDonald's. I see Save a Lot, Party City, and the list just goes on and on and on. So this is really such a huge haul. My suggestion is that first day that you go in, go ahead and get your bearings straight. Figure out some big corners and who's on those corners, so you can look up and figure out your reference point, maybe if you're zooming in on the floor plan to try to figure out where you're going, and wear a Fitbit or an Apple Watch or something that counts your steps, because you're going to be getting them in, trekking from one meeting to the next.
Yeah, absolutely. I know it's a really good point to have it pulled up on your map on your phone, because I know the map looks, mighty easy to kind of go over and figure out, but you can get lost in there. These booths are 20 and 30 feet high at times, and it's, walking through a city of a jungle. It's not really very easy to lose your bearings.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Charles, let's go to the next slide. Setting goals for the show. Can you click to that one?
Sure, have a little bit of technical difficulty on our ends, but yeah, let's go ahead and start talking about what are the goals
Okay.
folks should have when going into RECon. And I think the biggest thing is really to be realistic with what you can really get accomplished this week. What should be, the top priorities for the list. I know talking with either your board or your council as a municipal leader, it's not likely you'll be walking away with an LOI. So what are some things, Kyle, that folks should be trying to get out of this week? What should some of their goals be?
Yeah, Charles, like you said, is really going and making those connections and face-to-face meetings. And with economic development, it's a long-term process. It may be 6 months down the road before something happens. It may be all the way up to 3-4 years. So really, it's important to get your name out there and let these retailers and restaurants know that your community is interested in them, and really interested in bringing them in. We kind of hit on this earlier, is attend all the social functions. In the past, it's been great to kind of meet these retailers and restaurants, these people that we're in touch with on a regular basis outside of, the business setting, where you can kind of sit down and talk to them there. So my key takeaway here is really take advantage of everything that RECon offers, and expect to go in and really make the connections, and then your follow-up is really what counts, and where you need to take advantage.
Exactly. I know there are a ton of educational seminars throughout the entire conference all week. And this is a really great resource, especially for municipal leaders, to go in and hear talks about some case studies across the country, everything from, what have folks done across the country to redevelop a mill. I know there are several opportunity zones, educational seminars that will be going on, everything from how do you take care of a vacant grocery store to an old Walmart space, to food halls, and some more of the trendier things going on in the retail industry, especially if you have a large team going out to Vegas. One thing that we see a lot of is when you have an entire board or a team of 5 or 6 folks, most of the booths, although we talk about how big they are, in terms for meeting space, they're actually quite small, and most tables are set up for really, one-on-one, or, maybe 3-4 people max at a table. So, take on that divide and conquer mentality where, maybe folks from your community are going and attending webinars while some are having the meetings with the retailers. Make sure you map out that aspect as well. And then on top of kind of knowing what your goals are, you should already be started to get prepared for those meetings. And, most of this leads in with knowing your market backwards and forwards. And Caroline, with all the discussions you have with retailers, what are some things that folks need to know, talking points for their community? What are some things that kind of pique the interest of site selectors?
Yeah, I mean, this list right here is definitely exactly what they're going to ask. And we talk about this in more detail over the next few slides, but, we'll talk to you in a few minutes about an elevator pitch, basically. But know your market, know your market, know your market. Demographics are exactly what these retailers are looking for. And so they want to know your trade area, how many people, are in your trade area, not just the population of your community, but they want to know that bigger draw of where people are driving from to come to your community. So that's your retail trade area. They want to know those numbers. They want to know who's already there, because a big national brand presence currently in the market tells other retailers that, something's going on in your market and there's money to be made for them. And so, be ready to throw out some quick retailers that are already there. awareness of primary vacancies is so important, because when you're talking to a retailer, they may say, yeah, we want to be there, but there's just not a good site for us. So go ahead and drive around your community, drive around your market, look at strip centers that, have been there for years, and see if anybody's moved out lately. And there's a for lease sign up right now that you may not have been aware of, or, some lots and different things. Same thing for developments. Make sure you're in touch with, the developers that are working in your communities. And so if somebody's got something going on and it's a perfect spot right off an exit for Chick-fil-A, and they're putting in a hotel and there's some things planned, make sure that you know that off the top of your head, so you can point that out to these retailers when you talk to them. And then also know who your community can support. So what the retail categories are where there's some leakage. Be able to tell them, I'm sorry, there's a train going by the office right now, if y'all hear it in the background. Be able to tell them that, you're really losing a lot of money in your community to restaurants because people are having to drive 15 or 20 miles for a sit-down restaurant. So that's really a lot of what you're going to want to talk to them about.
Right. And I know you mentioned sites. How important is it to have a really good grasp of what sites are available and their specifics in terms of how big is how big is a pad site in front of a larger development, or the acreage, or what type of retail vacancies in a strip center, from square footage to even lease rates. Those specifics with sites, how does that come into these conversations, and is that something that folks need to know going into it?
I would say go ahead and do your homework, or not homework, but do your research before you go. So have all of that information ready. You may not have enough time when you're sitting down talking to that retailer or that broker to give them all that information, but they may be so interested that they want to know right then. These are deal-making sessions. And so, if you have the right site that would fit for them, they may want to go ahead and take that information down and make notes on it. So I would suggest, if there's some great sites or vacancies that you have and what retailers would fit there, then go ahead and get all the information on those sites that you can, and then have it ready on your notes section on your iPad or something like that, so that you can pull it up quickly. Or you can also email it to these guys later, because, if you've got a site that's perfect for a retailer, then that makes all the difference.
Right. And I know you mentioned kind of having your elevator pitch. These folks are having so many conversations, so many back-to-back, that they're squeezing in so much stuff that you really aren't going to get a ton of face time with a lot of these gatekeepers that we call them. So you have to be able to have that succinct, 90-second to 3-minute pitches of, hey, this is our community. This is why you need to be here. Here are a few places that might fit with your expansion strategy. So practice that and make sure you have that story of your community down to kind of put your community in its best light. And I also know you mentioned, the cell phone data and the mobile location data. And this is something that we use a lot in our office, and it's really on the forefront of retail recruitment. It's figuring out what your true trade area is. Here's a map here of a Whole Foods market outside of Atlanta. And we've expanded looking at more than just drive times or radials to see what the true customer core is like. So we can see here, a great talking point for someone recruiting for Alfred outside of Atlanta would be, hey, that Whole Foods market had 115,000 customers, unique customers, and over 400,000 visits in the last 6 months. That's a quantitative number. You can throw out a great talking point that you can show the opportunity in your area, whether it be your Walmart or even on the smaller scale, knowing what your McDonald's does in terms of customer visits. So this mobile location data is really a key part to kind of show the overall value in your market. And with some of our data partners, we can go out and map them, their home location like this. We can also look at multiple stores. So this is 3 different Whole Foods outside of Atlanta. And this is where you start looking at, cannibalization maps to figure out, maybe we really are underserved. And if they dropped another Whole Foods in North Atlanta, it could be a very successful store. So using some high-tech data like this to really leverage your talks with these communities, these retailers, these site selectors. These are the pieces that can really raise an eyebrow. They are, maybe we do need to look at that, because there's a big piece of there in the middle that doesn't seem to be going to any of our existing stores. Maybe that is a market we can go in and drop another store. And it's broken down overall again by numbers of customers. Anytime you can drop data and numbers to back up, that's way it's not just a story. Oh, we know people are coming down from Marietta to shop in our store. If you can actually show that with data, with cell phone data, it really changes the conversation. And even get down to even more granular than that, looking at, hey, our Whole Foods is the busiest on Saturdays, or this is how much these events in town can affect. So having just these extra 2 or 3 tidbits to talk about different types of visitation to show the strength in your market can really change how some of these site selectors who can't get to every market every year. There's too many of them throughout the year. So offering data like this is really a great way to control your story and sell your community on why that certain retailer, that developer, that broker needs to come and check out your community today, coming up out of RECon, to really start those conversations and get them moving. Which, kind of leads us into the marketing materials. I know the days of dropping reams of paper on people's desks are come and gone. So it's really getting to a point of being mobile. And Kyle, I know you have a lot of the talks with communities and retail brokers. What are some of the ways that you get some of the stuff across, and how do you kind of shape some of these conversations to show and visualize opportunity in markets?
Definitely, Charles. So my first ICSC show, I kind of went the paper route and quickly learned that wasn't the most effective way, and the majority of my materials ended up in a trash can on the way out when I was giving them out to retailers and restaurants. But my kind of key point here to take away would kind of keep things as simple as possible. I'm a big believer that these retailers and restaurants, they want to see the visual, like we hit on earlier. Site profiles, that's one thing they're going to want to see. So knowing your available sites in your community. And a location map is also a big thing. We like to use a 2-page flyer that kind of depicts that retail trade area and a few numbers that they're going to look at. That's going to be your population, your incomes, and really that location map, because a lot of these retailers and restaurants, they might not be familiar with your community and where you're located. So they'll turn over and look at that location map to get a better idea of really where you are, and to where they can see, okay, well, this is our closest location to here, and kind of gives them a better idea of really where you are and where you're located.
Yeah, I know having those maps can really help a conversation, especially visualize, when you can say, yeah, we've got this site on a hard corner, when otherwise you can pull up a map and show them. And like you said, we like to be mobile. We build out marketing materials for a lot of our clients to have these while they're in Vegas, to kind of really show the traffic patterns, be able to show them exactly what it's like on a map. So when that site selector goes back, they've kind of seen that area before. They kind of know exactly what corner, what building it really is. And this is something that we build out for all of our clients. So then there is still time. So these are things that you're trying to put together between now and Vegas. Feel free to reach out for us. It's something we can certainly help you with to make sure that you've got some of these pieces in place. I will say that throughout the leasing mall, cell phone coverage is not great. So even if you do have an iPad that gets cell coverage, we recommend going ahead and taking screenshots and other things that don't rely on data. That way you can still pull up and have those conversations. Really, while you're in the moment talking to these folks, show them, if they see it, they're going to better remember it. Then when you follow up, it seems to stick with them a little bit longer. So have all these pieces handy. We've gone to a digital world, obviously, and having an iPad like that you can flip through and show sites, show your trade area and things like that can really help push that conversation forward. But at the same time, there is, some cases where conversations do go well, as Caroline alluded to, that there are a few pieces that you might want to have with you as kind of a leave behind. And Caroline, what are some leave behinds that you've had success with at some of these events?
Good question. So, you will have those conversations where they don't go anywhere. And then you will have those conversations where they say, yeah, I'm interested. give me your business card, or what do you have, that you can leave with me? And we always just suggest a one-page community marketing flyer. We just call it the retail marketing flyer that we do for each of our clients. And, brand it with your logo, your city logo. There you go. Thanks, Charles. Brand it with your city logo. But we suggest having kind of just a snapshot of your community. And so have a location map from a bigger perspective. So, don't just say, we're in Texas, show a little bit, scan out a little bit to show that you're in maybe North Texas or something like that. Show your retail trade area. So have that little map that shows not just your community, but bigger picture where you're drawing those consumers, or where retailers would draw those consumers. Demographic profile is huge. Some of the dollar stores want to see that you've got maybe some lower incomes, high density, lower income, that sort of thing. Look for certain demographics. And so they're going to want to know what your income levels are and what your demographics are. That's for the dollar store. On the flip side, Whole Foods or Sprouts or some of these nicer grocers are going to want to see higher incomes, higher, educational attainments. And so know who you're talking to and what they look for, and then have the demographics to back up why you're the perfect market for them. Primary traffic counts is another thing. If you've got them, that's great. I was setting a meeting with a retailer this morning, and for RECon, and he said his reply back was, let's meet Tuesday at 9 o'clock in May, but go ahead and send me 1, 3, 5, and 10 mile radius. And so, traffic counts, those sorts of things, so important. Also, appropriate contact information. Make sure that you've got your information, on this flyer ready to give to them. And then, if you've got a site that you think is perfect and you want to go ahead and market that to a number of retailers that would fit, or maybe even just one, go ahead and have a flyer for that site specifically. You can kind of see the back of how we do these flyers in our office. Is we do the location map, but then we also do a map of existing national retail brands. So we want them to see who's already in the market. It's part of your elevator pitch, but just seeing those national logos really helps as well, in our opinion.
I know we kind of talked about the preparation of it, so let's kind of get more into the actual strategy, the doing of going in and having these meetings at RECon. And a big piece of it is knowing your approach and structuring your day, know when the workshops are, and then go out, do your homework, have all these things, like I said earlier, divide and conquer, practice selling your community. It gets down to targeting the right folks and building out kind of who you want to try to get in front of. And a big piece of that is kind of creating a hit list of retailers and brokers. So what are some of the good ways, Kyle, that we start building some of those lists and figuring out who even should we be trying to talk to in Vegas?
Oh, definitely. So when we're kind of creating what we consider these retailer match lists, we really look into the demographic numbers and kind of all the reports, the leakage analysis that we put out. And in 2019, we've seen that these retailers and restaurants, they really have a scientific approach where your community kind of has to check off a number of their boxes for them to consider locating in your community. So you really need to know your identity and who you are. For In-N-Out example, you can see their traffic count requirements. So 50,000 there, a population of 60,000 plus. That's that trade area that we've been talking about, that we kind of use that cell phone analysis to determine your consumer and how far they're traveling to shop in your community. It really goes into income. So you can kind of see what you need to know on your community to understand, okay, these are the type retailers and restaurants that I need to target while I'm in Vegas, and really have that planned approach instead of just showing up and going from booth to booth.
Yeah, and I think it lets you have a better conversation with these site selectors too. If you go out in the front and say, hey, I know you need 60,000 folks in the trade area with traffic counts of over 50,000. Your closest In-N-Out is 14 miles down the road in an adjacent community, we've got a great site for you. When you say show that you put that homework in, you kind of know what their story is. You seem to get their attention a little bit better and can typically have a better conversation. And even if it is a no, we're not coming to your community, you can probably have a better luck of saying we're not there yet, or why they aren't quite ready to be looking at your community, to maybe start planning in the next few years of what some things you can start doing to come back next year and talk to In-N-Out or whoever it may be. And whether we find out those 5 or 6, 10, 15 targets we're looking at, Caroline, I know you mentioned the ICSC website earlier. It's a great place to figure out the actual right contact and try to set up a meeting beforehand, right?
Yes, for sure. So if you go to the RECon website, on the ICSC website, then go to RECon 2019. We've got the link up here. Then if you scroll down, there are links to just a wealth of information. One of those is an attendees list. And so we use that attendees list. I mean, I'm in this page right here, probably 6 out of my 8-hour workday, 6 hours a day. So, I mean, you just go to the search bar, you start searching for those retailers that you want to meet with. So search for McDonald's, search for Walmart, search for Target, search for McAllister's, which would be Focus Brands, but whatever it is, whoever you think that would be great for you to meet with, go ahead and start seeing who from that company is coming. And then sometimes you're able to figure out from their title if they're the right site selector for you to meet with. So maybe it'll say real estate manager, North Texas, or maybe it won't say their location at all, but if you live in South Carolina and it says real estate manager, you can figure out from their location, that they're probably the closest one to you. So go ahead and reach out to them. If you click on their names, it'll take you directly to their contact information. Don't cold call, but do cold email, and go ahead and send them an email with a little bit of information about your community. I always like to include a short little blurb in that email about the community, we're right off of I-70, trade area population of whatever. I'd really like to get a meeting with you at RECon. Give me a time that works for you. I can come to you, are very important things to put in there. Let them pick the time and go ahead and start trying to set those meetings. And this is where you find that information to do it.
I think that's a great spot. And then talking about, once you do get that meeting, figuring out kind of back to your elevator pitch, you mentioned, let me come to you in terms of getting that meeting, but what are some things you like to throw in there to kind of, once you got their attention, really hammer home that why they need to be in a community?
Yeah, we mentioned earlier, you want to be able to tell them that national brand presence. So tell them who's already there. So you see right here in a sample elevator pitch, we've got about 95,000 in our trade area. Remember, you're not selling your community population, you're selling that trade area population. So we've got about 95,000 people in our trade area. We've already got a Walmart, a Kohl's, a Hobby Lobby. We have Applebee's and we have Logan's, but we still, from our leakage and our analysis, there's still about $8 million, $9 million of restaurant leakage that could be in our market. And we think that you guys would be a great fit for it. Your closest unit's 25 miles away. Can I meet with you for 5 to 10 minutes to discuss your interest in our market? I might have a great site for you. So I think that's a great elevator pitch. You can put some of this into your request, your email request. I would say keep the email request short and sweet, but when you get a chance to speak to them face to face, whether it's a scheduled meeting or a drop-in, this is what you want to be saying over and over and over to each of the retailers that you're meeting with. And then next, once you speak with them and have that meeting, then go ahead and invite them to your community. Let them know, hey, if you'll just come to a site visit next time, next time you're in Colorado, if you're a community in Colorado, next time you're in Colorado, please come. We'd love for you to visit. I'll drive you around. I'd love to sit down and talk to you and see what we can do to get you into the market. Always let them know that you are proactive, that you're aggressive, that you're not going to be one of those communities that's going to have a lot of delays, maybe whether it's some of the paperwork submission that they have to go to, or zoning, or whatever it is. Let them know that you are aggressive in recruiting retail, and that you're one of the good guys and you're on their team. And then also meet with the retail brokers active in your area. I mean, a lot of times, as we said, they're gatekeepers for retailers. So one way that we tell a lot of communities to figure out who the brokers are, because obviously you don't know who represents whom, but we always suggest driving around your market, driving around your community before you leave, and making note of who some of the bigger names are that you see the signs in the windows leasing shopping centers, who has a commercial real estate sign at a great corner lot in your community. And a lot of times, if you figure out who's representing in your community, then you can reach out to them for maybe a RECon meeting and say, who else do you represent besides just the leasing side? Do you represent any retailers that maybe we could get to our market? Another suggestion is, look and see the closest MSA or big city to you. Look and see if some of the big brokerage firms from those big cities are coming, and then start asking them for meetings, because a lot of times, CBRE out of Dallas will represent, I don't want to misspeak, but they may represent one drive-through in all of Texas or something like that. And so just go ahead and start doing your homework that way, and then target and meet with developers also that are active in your region. So if you know that one group did a development in a town 20 miles away or 50 miles away or whatever it may be, hey, go ahead and reach out to them and say, we've got a perfect site that just needs a developer. Would you be interested in it? And this is where you can go ahead and meet those retailers. So if you've heard some names being thrown around as people that make things happen, search that attendees list on the RECon page and see if they're attending. And if they are, reach out and see if you can meet with them.
Exactly. And the one point that I want to echo is talking about, having that business-friendly persona as a community. And that's one of the main reasons that we like to involve our contacts, our clients in those meetings with us, because inevitably during some kind of real estate deal, there's going to be either a variance or a zoning roadblock, speed bump, something that retailer or that developer is going to have to communicate with the community. And if you're already part of that conversation, they know who you are, they know they've got a friend with the community that they can help kind of talk through that and sort it out as fast as possible. It really does give off that business friendly approach, and that they know that's a community that they can get a deal done and be successful. So I do think that's an excellent point you made that I wanted to kind of reiterate on that aspect, that being as a city leader, showing that you want businesses there does have a value with these guys.
Charles, and one thing I want to add on this is oftentimes, looking at a community from Google Maps oftentimes doesn't really paint the best picture. And we've seen a lot of the communities we work in is really when we can get these retailers and restaurants to the community, it's a much easier sell when they can really see what's going on visually, whether that's new shopping centers that are being built, or is that's residential rooftops, mixed use. So actually getting these retailers and restaurants to commit to coming to your community is a much easier sell.
No, absolutely. I think that's a key point, is getting them to the market is a huge step. And then I know we've kind of mentioned that Wednesday is a much slower day, but that doesn't mean that you can't be productive on that. What are some good ways, Kyle, that you can utilize that few hours on Wednesday morning into the early afternoon to make sure you wrap up some loose ends in Vegas?
Oh, you're definitely right there. In the past few years, Wednesday has really been one of the most productive days for me. Before I really get into that, I will say if you're planning on meeting with a specific contact for a retailer or restaurant that you didn't get to on Monday or Tuesday, I will say Wednesday is probably not the best day for that. In the past few years, we've seen a lot of people are actually leaving on that day, but really where Wednesday has been beneficial for me is really just going by and talking to somebody at the front desk and picking their brain on what their expansion plans are for specific states moving forward over the next few years. Just getting those front and back page handouts that really let you know who your contact is for your specific area, so you have up-to-date contact information with who you need to follow up with in case you don't really get that face-to-face meeting. So Wednesday can really be utilized. It's much slower paced. So that's what I can say is really Wednesday is one of the most helpful days to really follow up and get those 1 to 2 page handouts that these retailers and restaurants provide at their booths.
Exactly, and on the follow-up theme there, it's we kind of talked about setting your expectations for RECon. It's more of an introduction, and the follow-up might be the most important part of all of this. You don't get a whole lot of time. They've had 100 conversations throughout a day. So what are kind of some tips for the follow-up that you've seen be successful?
I've seen, in my experience, my first RECon, I actually watched a webinar similar to this just to prepare myself. And one of the women that was presenting said, don't send a follow-up email that day. Wait until 2 weeks later because they're getting so much, information sent. And I thought, oh, okay, well, that's good to know. So my first RECon, that's what I did. I waited a week or two to send those emails, and it was the worst idea ever because the information was not fresh in my mind because it just so much time had lapsed since that email or since that meeting. And so my recommendation is if you meet with a retailer, whether it's scheduled or whether you just walk in their booth, shake their hand, they tell you they handle your area and you walk out, then take the time at the end of your day to email a short thank you note. You don't have to put a whole lot of information in there, but I think that's a good idea for a couple of reasons. Number one, as Charles said, the retailer or broker met you, but they also just met 500 other people. And so this way, this is going to be in their inbox when they get back to the office and are ready to deal with it. So this serves as a reminder to them to follow up on your community. But another thing that it does is when you get back to the office, you can look through your sent items, and then that'll serve as a reminder to you, when you're making that report for your board or your council on who you met with and what you did, then you've got those thank you notes to remind you who all you met with, and their contact information is already in your outbox now. And then, my suggestion is just send those short emails day of, and then when you get back to the office and you're unwinding, then go ahead and send a PDF of your market flyer, with all those community demographics or whatever you have on there. Send some PDFs of sites that are available, and go ahead and, send the more in-depth information later when you get back to the office. But yeah, this is definitely one of the most critical parts. Name recognition is so important. Keep your name in front of them. A lot of times we see that, when you're meeting with a retailer, don't be upset if you hear that they've already got their build out and growth and expansion plans set for 2019, 2020, and 2021. They may be working on 2021 build out right now. And so that's their purpose of being at RECon, is to see who that next market is. So keep your name in front of them, keep following up, every 3 to 6 months, because you never know what could change. We talk to retailers all the time where they tell us, and they'll kind of share with us their expansion plans, and then we follow up with them 2 months later, and they just got passed down from the very top at the corporate level that, those expansion plans are out the window, and now we're looking at plan B. And so be persistent, but don't be pesky. Don't call them all the time just because you have their cell phone from that business card. Slow down. It's a slow process, but it works. And make sure that you follow up, and don't get your spirits dashed when you get a no every now and then.
Yeah, and it certainly is a process. It's a process we've been doing for 20 years, and it does work. And like you said, you never know when expansion plans change, or when a development that was planned for some reason falls through, and all of a sudden they're looking for a replacement site to fill out the 20 stores they were looking to fill out in the 12-month period. And just having persistence with those site selectors, knowing name recognition, know that there's always an option in your community as something comes up. You never know what ultimately shakeup can cause your number to be called, whether it be next week or a year down the road. that's kind of the full wrap up of kind of a lot of the tips and tricks that we've seen and known from RECon. We do have a couple of questions come in. I know we try to keep it short, but obviously we can talk about RECon for a long time because it's such a big event. But just a real couple questions before we jump off. The first one is looking at, how important is it to schedule meetings beforehand, Caroline, in terms of getting that face time versus dropping by and trying to meet somebody at the same time? What's the importance of that?
It's so important to try to schedule meetings ahead of time. We at the Retail Coach are scheduling meetings right now, and some retailers are telling me that they're already booked, and some are giving times easily. And so if you have a set meeting, then you know that you've got at least 5 to 10 minutes, maybe longer, to have some FaceTime with this retailer and to maybe be able to pull up on your map, or on your iPad, a map, and really talk to them a little bit about their market. So try as hard as you can to set meetings. Now, don't be afraid if you just get we're going to be at our booth, please drop in, here's our booth number, because a lot of the retailers have gone to not setting meetings. They're there for drop-ins, and you may have to wait in line for a few minutes. If you don't have any meetings set, it's not a worry. You can still definitely do drop-ins, and you'll get a good idea for how they feel about your market. But definitely make use of that attendees page on the RECon website and go ahead and start trying to set some meetings, because then if you know that you're going to be talking with a certain retailer about your community, you can go ahead and strategize for that meeting and see what their site criteria may be, or what demographics they look for, so you can back up your reasoning for why they need to be in your community.
Yeah, exactly. I know with drop-ins, always drop in, because you never know if they did have a set meeting that either finished early or, fell through on another end. You never know when they might have a couple of minutes just to at least introduce yourself, tell where you're from, to follow up later on. So if there are retailers that you're interested in attracting or targeting, drop by, morning and afternoon on both days if you can't get them. So like I said, you never know when they have the availability open up. And I think we have time for just one more question. It's kind of geared a little bit more toward on the community side of things. We've been talking how big RECon is, but we've got a question about community size. And is RECon, Kyle, do you think that this is a place for smaller cities? Can smaller cities still be successful here? Or how should they approach the whole ICSC conference schedule? Is RECon a good place to start, or are there some other options as well?
Yeah, Charles, we usually like to tell communities that are a little on the smaller end to focus more on the regional shows, whether that's ICSC Chicago and other ones, to kind of get their foot in the door and really understand how it works. But I will say, if you are signed up for RECon, there still is time to really formalize that approach and take some of these key points that we mentioned today and formalize your plan of moving forward and really who you want to meet with. And if you're feeling a little overwhelmed and really don't have a game plan set, there still is time, and we can help you with that.
Yeah, please, absolutely. If anyone's looking for some last minute strategy, even if it's just to bounce a few ideas off us, how maybe we can help you figure out who the right contacts are, anything like that, please reach out to us. Our email, our office number is here on the screen. You can go online and find all of our direct contact as well. We'd love to talk to you about how we can help make RECon this year a very productive show for you. Maybe it's a last minute cell phone analysis or some marketing material to make sure you have that good leave behind page. We're here to help, and whatever we can do to help you with this RECon, please let us know. Again, I said this recording is going to be sent out tomorrow morning for everyone who attended. Thank you for showing up and being a part of our webinar. Kyle, Caroline, is there anything else you want to end on?
I think that hits everything, Charles.
Yeah, if anyone, I assume that each of you are going to be attending RECon, and I'm so excited, and I hope that you plan on dropping by our booth at N28U in the North Hall and introducing yourself, because it's a fun time, but it's also a crazy time. So pack some Tylenol, wear comfortable shoes, drink some water, and get excited.
Great. And once again, we have our happy hour on Monday and Tuesday of RECon from 4 to 5:30 in the North Hall. Please stop by, come talk to us, touch base with us, let us know how your show is going and how we can help. Thanks again for tuning in, and feel free to reach out if there's anything we can do.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Charles.